Hey everyone, this is Abby Swanson from the Firefly Hook. Today we're going to be making the bulky beanie. It's one of my more popular designs and classes that I've taught. So hopefully if you took one of my classes, you're watching this video to try and make the beanie again. But if this is your first time tuning in, then you're going to be great too. It's going to be fun. So number one is finding the right materials, right? So this is one of my favorite yarns. It is Wool in the Gang Crazy Sexy Wool, and it's pretty amazing. And I have some also from We Are Knitters. It's called The Wool. It's pretty much the same yarn. And a big 15mm hook does really well. If you want to replace with another yarn, I highly recommend a single ply super bulky yarn. So hopefully you can find that somewhere. I get this online, so you can order it there. Number one, when we begin, is finding an end to your yarn, right? So, can't really start unless we have a yarn end in our hands. You can come around from the outside or find the yarn in the middle and pull out from the center. With super bulky yarn, I feel like it doesn't really matter if we pull it from the center or the outside because it's so big and there's actually so few yards that it's not going to get tangled up or in your way. So in my classes, I usually just say pull from the outside because you won't have a yarn barf when you pull out the middle and just come up with a big clump, okay? So step two, after we find our yarn end, is making a slip knot. So there are a couple of ways to do it. When I show you in class, I sort of mirror it this way as if it's facing you to begin. But I'm going to do it as if I'm looking at it, and we have this angle camera over here so you can also see what I'm seeing at the same time. So we're basically making a fish shape. It looks like a fish swimming up. These fingers here in the center are going to grab down here below where this crossed over. So these fingers are grabbing here. Grab a hold of the tail and pull. And that makes our slip knot. It's called a slip knot because it's an adjustable loop, basically. It can get bigger or smaller. And then if we pull on both sides with the loop in the middle, it'll totally come apart. The one disadvantage with this yarn, I will say, when you're trying to pull it out, sometimes it snags on itself and it gets a little tricky. So just be careful when you're pulling it out. You can also make a slip knot on your hook, which is what I do really without thinking. But I wrap the yarn this direction around the hook, cross it over so I still have my fish shape basically, wrap around, pull it off, and tighten, and there's your slip knot. So that's how we'll begin making our hat. We're going to be working in the round. There's a number of ways to work in the round. When I teach a class, I teach my favorite way to work in the round, and it feels more simple for people who've never crocheted before to learn this way. It doesn't mean it's the best way or the only way. You can find your favorite way as well, but this is the way I like to teach it. But first, if you've never crocheted before, making chains is the basic skill we need to learn to crochet. So what we're going to do is wrap the yarn around the hook this way. So the yarn is wrapped over this direction facing you. If you've ever knit before, knitters wrap this direction. It's not like this is wrong or anything, but with crochet it needs to be wrapped this way. I tell those in my class as well. If you are doing your stitches and you're wrapping this direction, it will not ruin your stitches or your hat. It's just, if you're learning more advanced stitches, you have to wrap this way, otherwise it won't work. So today for this project, don't stress out if you accidentally wrap the other direction. So to make a chain, you're going to wrap this way. This loop here is going to come up and off of your hook to make one chain. Wrap again, pull this up and off your hook. So now we've made two chains. Here's one, and there's the next one right there. This is all we'll do for right now in this video. And our next video, the cowl, you can watch that as well. We're going to make a lot more chains for the cowl. So today we'll just do this. What is on your hook never counts as a chain. It's always what is below it. So we have the tail here. There's our slip knot, that hard bump there. There's one chain, there's two chains, and there's the loop on our hook. So to begin, we're going to start making single crochets in the second loop from our hook, or second chain from our hook, the loop that's right above the slip knot. So you're going to put your hook into the chain and wrap around. This middle loop is going to come up and off your hook. I like to show just using my fingers at first because it's kind of easier to see instead of pulling with my hook. Wrap again, and then these two loops are going to come off of your hook. I'm going to pull those up and off, and that is one single crochet. What I like to do when I'm working in the round here is I keep my finger here so I know where the hole is. If you lose track, sometimes after you make a stitch it looks like a blob. Just find the tail, feel for the slip knot, and find the hole right above it, and that's where you're supposed to work. So you go into the chain and wrap through the middle, wrap again, and pull through both. After you make every loop around your hook, always push it up to this part of your hook where it's bigger. This part of the hook and the head of the hook are the same size. You can see it gets smaller as we go down here. You can make these loops down here and pull your hook out, but then afterwards you won't be able to put your hook into the stitch, and it's just really frustrating. So having looser stitches is better at this stage in the game than really, really tight ones. So into the chain and wrap, through the middle, wrap again, and through both. And I'm going to do a couple quick, so this is how I would hold it if I was doing it myself. When I'm showing you, it's kind of hard for you to see how I'm making the stitch when I do them quickly. But as we work the stitches into that second chain from our hook, it creates a circle. So now we have this circle filled up with stitches. According to the pattern, we need 7 single crochets in this circle. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we made it around. To count the stitches, you can also hold it like this, and you can see that each of these look like little V's going around. Each one of those is a stitch. When we look at it this way, this is how we'll be holding it when we work. We're going to be working in the back loop of each stitch, so it's the part of the stitch that's furthest away. Here's the front loop. It's kind of laying down there once I pull these out a bit for you to see. So now we're going to do the same stitch we did when we were here in the center, but we're going to be working around the outside of the circle. So we're going to put our hook into the stitch and wrap, pull the middle one off, wrap again, and pull them both off. So we did 1 stitch there, but we need 2 in each stitch. So we're going to go back in here one more time, wrap through the middle, wrap again, and through both. So now there's 2 stitches in this 1 stitch, and our next one is right here. We're going to work 2 stitches again in the next stitch. So now we have 2 here and 2 here. We continue working 2 stitches in each stitch around until when we count around the outside of the circle, we have 28 stitches for an adult hat. So when you count around this whole outside, you have 28 stitches. I tell people in my class it'll look like a coaster, and it'll be about this big around. And then I tell people to count if you kind of want to have an idea of how far to go before you get there. So you can see my circle is about as big as I was saying, maybe 5 or 6 inches across. I'm not very good at guessing how wide things are. So when it's about this big, you'll want to count around the outside, and you'll want to count each V as a stitch, and you want to get up to 28 stitches around. And I already counted mine off camera, so I know mine's 28. So now at this point, it is just cruising along and doing 1 stitch in each stitch around. So you'll just find your next stitch, do a single crochet, find the next one after that, single crochet, and you'll just keep moving around the circle. It will seem as though your coaster is going to get bigger and bigger, and it's never going to be a hat. But after a while, it's going to start to turn down into a hat just on its own without you doing anything, if you've never made a hat like this before. So as we go around, this is going to start to turn down. This is the outside of the hat. And so that's what it'll look like here. If you are looking at this side or see your tail, you've accidentally, while you're working, sometimes this happens, it goes this way, and then you start working this direction on your hat. You always want to make sure it's facing this way, and this tail part is away from you, and that will help you. Okay, so as you've noticed while you were making it, it sort of turned into a bucket. It turned up by itself, and now it is a hat. So typically, if you weren't counting rows or anything, I would say you want your hat as tall as it is wide when you're looking at it when it's laying flat. So to finish off, we're going to do a couple of slip stitches because we were working in a spiral. So basically this is like a stair step, right? And we kind of want to taper it down to finish it off. So you're just going to find your next stitch, go into it just like the single crochet, and wrap just like the single crochet. Pull through like the single crochet, but instead of wrapping again, we're just going to pull this loop through. And it makes a shorter stitch, it kind of tucks it in here. We're just going to do that 2 times. So you go into the next stitch and wrap, pull through the middle one, and then pull through the loop on your hook. Then to finish off, grab your scissors and cut, which always feels scary, cutting your yarn. And then you're just going to pull up on this loop on your hook until this yarn pops up and through. It just comes out. And then what I like to do, just to keep this nice and straight, is to go into the next stitch and pull this loop down. Because then it kind of tucks in and tapers off. Then what you want to do is take this strand and pull it into the inside of your hat, so it's nice and hidden. And then we're going to be finding a couple of loops here on the back just to pull this strand away from the edge of our hat, because we don't want people to see that. Just like that. And then what I like to do on my yarn is split it in half. So on a single ply, you're just kind of trying to find the middle and just pulling it apart. Then grab one of those ends and wrap it around a loop, just on one side. Make sure it's not warped at all. Take these 2 ends and tie them once, twice, kind of gently because you don't want to warp this. Then that 3rd time, you're really going to pull on it till it gets as tight as you can. Cut those ends off. Kind of push that knot down into there. Make it nice and straight. I do a little shaping with my hands too. We have one more end to deal with, and it's our first one here at the top. Usually this hole will get pretty big when you're working in it, but if you pull here, it'll tighten that hole right up. And again, I split this one. Find another loop next to it. And tie it again. But because of that slip knot that's there, you're not going to warp this part of the hat. I just like to make another knot so you can kind of cut this nice and close and not worry about anything coming apart. And then you can just pop your hat on your head, and you did it! So thank you for joining me with the bulky beanie tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and you can watch the cowl video or some more that we have coming up. So thanks for watching.